Can you hear me?
Yep, I hear you fine.
Okay. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. A little nervous about this. I've never done a Zoom interview, so
Yeah, it can be pretty intimidating at first, but yeah, thank you for making the time to just come on here and have a conversation with me. Yeah, but I always just like to ask just the human thing, how are you doing?
I'm great. I appreciate taking the time out to reach out to Anniston and hopefully help get us involved a bit more with the community.
Mhm. Yeah. Um So yeah, I guess we can just go ahead and jump into it a little bit. They people already know who I am, but if you'd like to introduce yourself and just share a little bit about your background and what you do.
Okay. I'll start off. Obviously, my name Sergeant Dunnagan. I work for the Anniston Police Department. I was actually born up north in Granite City, which is just outside of East St. Louis. I grew up in the projects there. In 1989, I moved back home to Alabama, what I call home. This is where all my family was from. So most of my raising was done in the projects at East St. Louis. As far as my work background was construction, commercial, residential construction, homes, that type of thing. I managed a local retail place here in Anniston, and I was actually become good friends with the captain at that time here, who reached out to me and said, "You really need to get into law enforcement," and which was my original dream was in military, and I enlisted in the Marine Corps right out of high school. Broke my arm, so that obviously didn't happen. Well, law enforcement was the next closest thing to a military life, so it's been definitely a blessing. I was sworn in June 24th of 2005. So I'm going on my 15th year here in about a week.
All right, that sounds great.
So that's basically it for
Yeah. Let me see. So just to I guess kind of tell people why we're here. Just having a conversation, just informing um people on I guess just everyone knowing their rights, and you're going to share with us information on what you all do as police officers or as law enforcement, and then also just sharing um, just how citizens just yeah, I'm like repeating myself over and over, but yeah, just knowing their rights about that. So um, so yeah, I guess we can go on from there, and thank you for introducing yourself. So yes, if you could tell me, we can just start off with just what are your duties, and what do you do with the Anniston Police Department now?
okay. Basically the same as all officers department. Our role is to enforce the laws in a fair and impartial manner while still recognizing statutory limitations of our authority without stepping on the constitutional rights of our citizens. A little bit more on my plate as a shift sergeant. I'm responsible for supervising activities of all the officers on my shift, making sure they're fairly enforcing the laws, assisting investigations, properly presenting and preserving evidence, depending on what the call may be. And then the big part most is trying to be a liaison basically between the department and the public. I love being involved in the public. I love working with people and building that rapport with the citizens that I'm actually working for.
Mhm.
And once that rapport is built, it helps perform as an officer. A lot of people, they don't know a police officer or just talk to somebody. So if we have long investigation, you rapport with certain those citizens can give you key information as far as being able to help solve cases.
Okay. Just however much you would like to share just about your training as a police officer, or if you want to share how police officers are trained now before they go into like the field.
As a new hire, you're hired in the department. Typically, you'll spend a couple, 2 or 3 weeks prior to actually go into our academy. And those weeks, you'll spend a few days in investigations, a few days with our warrant officers, a few days in records. And once you're sent to police academy, you spend 12 weeks there. And during the academy, you're going to learn the majority of the basics, your laws, your Title 13, different like field sobriety techniques, that type of stuff. After those 12 weeks, as long as you've maintained a passing grade and completed everything, then you graduate and then you return to shift. In Anniston Police Department, we have a field training program that consists of 14 weeks. During those 14 weeks, you'll run with a minimum of 3 training officers that's broke down into weeks. And each week is a different phase of training, starting off with policies, procedures, and then you start moving on up to the more strenuous part of the job, like use of force, report writing, that type of stuff. And then that training officer is basically walking you through up till typically your third phase. You're walking hand in hand with the training officer. When they feel comfortable that you can perform the job safely and properly, then released into shadow. And shadow is now you're in a car by yourself. You have an FTO that responds to your calls. So if you have a problem on scene that you don't know how to react, then they'll step in and kind of help guide you and keep you on the same to properly handle that call. Once you're done with the shadow program and you've met all the criteria, then you're now released as a solo officer. And then you're a solo officer at that point, but you're still being critiqued for the next couple of years. And your jobs, your videos, as a supervisor, we download your videos from your body cameras daily. Every time they're downloaded, we review those body cameras and make sure you're staying within the guidelines and you're not trying to enforce laws that aren't fair.
Okay. And does that, like checking body cams and everything that you do with new hires, does that continue afterwards, or how long does that?
That's always we do. Every officer is equipped with a body camera. They're downloaded depending on the usage, how often they're there. They're downloaded and they're reviewed and logged every day. As a supervisor, we're required to review at least minimum 3 videos every time we download their cameras.
Okay. And so what are reasons that you would stop someone or pull them over? What are reasons that you would do that, or what do you tell other officers, like whether it's things to look out for or just anything?
Traffic stop related, there's the 3 reasons that we'll conduct a traffic stop. Obviously, your first reason is to watch out and correct driving habits, such as running a red light, speeding, something that could endanger a citizen. Your second reason would be to investigate a crime that just occurred. So say, for instance, we got a robbery or burglary and the victim stated suspects left in a black Camry. While en route to call, we see a black Camry description, we would stop the vehicle to investigate further to see if they were or were not involved. And then our third reasoning for conducting traffic stop would be for drug interdiction, trying to get drugs, guns, and so on off the street.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And in the event that someone is pulled over, or if someone is stopped, are they, I'm not sure if other people know, like if they're allowed to ask questions like, why am I being stopped? Or just anything, if they ask you that question, if they think that it's unfair, or how does that work?
I would encourage citizens to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
Once the traffic stop, I wanted to be clear why the traffic stop was made, and if there's anything further that needs to be done by the driver, either to come to court or issue a citation. I don't want anything to be cloudy. I want everything to be clear and precise. They know why I stopped them, what my intentions are, the more elect that we have, my opinion, it puts everybody more at ease, to include the driver. You know, especially young kids, they're stopped, they're really nervous, they're scared, they're shaking. Me as an officer with 15 years experience, if that was an older person I stopped, would lead me to believe there may be something criminal going on. So with that dialect, with them asking questions, now we've opened up a door of communication. It helps the officer to relieve that stress, both for the officer and the driver, to really decide, okay, are they just nervous because of the stop, or are they nervous because something criminal has happened? And that dialect will help us process that, decide if we need to look further into that traffic stop.
Okay. So for that, that's why you would encourage people to ask questions, as far as
Yes. And obviously, we want questions to be related to traffic stop. You know, we don't want to prolong our citizen any longer than we have to. So if we can answer the question directly, if once that traffic stop is over with, as long as they know the where, what, and why they were stopped, then anything further, like we can't negotiate. Okay, I pulled you over for speeding. There on the side of the road isn't the time to have a court proceeding. Okay, and it's the citizen's opinion versus ours, and that's what the court proceedings will be for.
okay. And for because I know there are, especially around this time, new drivers on the road. Um, and some may not know. I know I have a 15-year-old cousin who may not, or six. Sorry, he's 16. That may not know this. So if a younger person is pulled over, if you could tell what things they would need, like what do they need in their car whenever you pull them over, what you ask them for.
Two main things that they are required by law to have is obviously a driver's license and then proof of insurance. Based on most all vehicles are equipped with a program where we can run tags and verify the vehicle is or is not stolen. If some situations, if we're not able to do that, then we may ask for vehicle registration just to verify who that vehicle belongs to.
And at what point, or whenever after being pulled over, at what point would you give a ticket versus giving a warning? Because I know there's, does that just depend on if you've had a ticket before or just the circumstance?
That's actually a lot of the main reason we do a traffic stop is to correct bad driving habits. So if I pull over and I run the driver's license and it pulls back a long driver's history of moving violation, then my opinion, a warning isn't advice. They're obviously not learning to correct that behavior. But now if I've pulled over a person for, say, doing 10 miles over the speed limit, I've ran their driver's license, they have no history, no bad driver's history, no moving violations, then I'm going to say, okay, this may not be normal for them. They're typically a safe driver. In that case, more than likely, I would issue a warning.
Okay.
That all is going to depend on the traffic stop and the officer, because at the end of it, it's all up to that driver's discretion, his feeling about the traffic stop.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And sometimes if someone is pulled over, there may be a situation where they may be asked to like get out of the car, have their car searched, or anything of that nature. So what would be a reason, or if there are multiple reasons why you would have someone to exit their vehicle or to search their car for anything?
Yeah, there would be numerous situations that would cause us for that. One being the earlier example I gave about the robbery in progress and the vehicle description matched. We'd want to obviously remove the persons from the vehicle in case there's any guns or anything that could cause us or anybody harm. If I'm approaching a vehicle and I either notice or smell any illegal substance, then that's going to warrant me to dig deeper into the traffic stop, remove them, search the persons and the vehicle for either guns, alcohol, drugs, something of that nature. Once we do remove a person, and I think this is something that a lot of people need to be aware of. And more, I think knowledge plays a big part in everybody's safety. If I'm removing you from the vehicle, I'm obviously going to pat you down for weapons. If I've patted you down and I feel now at this point it's safe to proceed, it kind of puts everybody more at ease. If I know you don't have anything that's going to cause me harm, then I can relax more and then create a better dialect between myself and the person that I'm speaking with. If once I've started down starts getting fidgety or resisting the efforts to safely pat them down, then that's going to arise concern. I'm going to feel like they're either trying to hide something that could harm me or somebody else around.
Okay. And what do you or what do you all classify as like resisting, or just is it just off of their body language or someone's body language?
As far as resisting, once let's say if we're going to place somebody under arrest, any person that is attempting to prevent or attempt to prevent an officer from placing himself or another person in custody, then that's resisting. So if I, at this point, I tell you you're being placed under arrest for said violation, and you pull away, and I have to use force to either get you to place you in cuffs, and that is resisting. Any attempt to stop that officer from making a lawful arrest would be resisting.
Okay. And if I know that you all have body cams, so if like if a citizen wants to record anything, whether it's video or audio, um, are they able to do that, or just for their?
Yes, especially if it's going to make them feel. I mean, the only thing that we have no law restrict is not making phone calls during a traffic stop, and that's more of a safety preference for us. I mean, until I know your intentions or you know my intentions, it's until that traffic stop is over, just refrain from that. Now, if it's somebody young, all means they need to call a parent or how they don't know what to do and they're scared. We completely understand that.
Do they, is that something that they need to like ask or anything, or they can just automatically do it? If
They
they,
can automatically, what I would do in this is just tell the officer, hey, they're okay if I call my, I'll let them know what's going on. I'm in the traffic stop. I'm going to be late getting home, something of that nature, just so we know you're not on the phone trying to call. Yeah, I just made a just worst scenario here. I just made a large gun purchase, so I need guys to come back me up because they're about to find the guns. That's, we always have the worst going through our mind. So again, to create a dialect with that person, conversation, asking questions, puts the officer at ease just as much as it does the driver, to try to build that rapport and talk.
okay. So, so if there is a need to arrest someone, um, what are reasons, what are, or I guess if you want to give examples for at what point you would need to arrest someone, or if you arrest someone, kind of like a second part, if there are people in the car, what do those people left over in the car do if they're not the ones being arrested?
If trying to give some examples, better explain it. If let's say I'm arresting now, typically on an arrest, any misdemeanor or crime that's committed in our presence, there will be an arrest made. There is officers who may release the person if on warrants or let it go. It just really depends on the circumstances at that situation. If the driver is arrested and there's passengers in the car that are of age, have a valid driver's, the driver can release the vehicle over to the passengers for them to leave in the vehicle. If the driver is not comfortable with that, then obviously the passengers have to call for somebody to pick them up and the vehicle is then towed. If the crime that they're being arrested for involves another victim, say another citizen is the victim, then we don't use that discretion. It's definitely an arrest that's made. If it involves us as the victim or the city of Anniston as the victim, then that officer can use that discretion to sign warrants and arrest them at a later time. For example, if I stopped, say, a mother with several children in the car, and there was a crime that was committed that involved the city that doesn't endanger any other person, then we will be more apt to let that person go and sign warrants and have them come turn themselves in rather than leaving children stranded waiting for another family member to pick them up.
Okay. You do read people their Miranda rights. There's a requirement. If you would mind sharing what those are and just a bit about what they mean for people if they do get arrested in a situation.
Okay. The Miranda warrant, basically, it's if somebody is placed in custody, we're just advising of their rights to silence. Um, I'll read the Miranda warning. You have the right to silence. If you give that the right, anything you say can and will be used against you in court of law. You have the right to an attorney present during this time and any questioning. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed to you by the courts. This was adopted in 1966, basically to protect the citizens' Fifth Amendment. So they're not just they're not being pressured into stating something that could convict them. Letting them understand, okay, if you did or did not commit a crime, if you don't want to speak to this point, then you are in custody for this said crime. So if you want to wait till you have an attorney present, that's letting them know that that is their right, that they don't have to answer questions once they're in custody.
And then after that, what's like the next steps? Because I know you gave like briefly a few different ways, like if you just like place a warrant and have themselves turned in, or if someone is taken away in the car, or I guess even if they do turn themselves in, what happens after that for the citizen?
If they are arrested and placed in a patrol car, if they're arrested, then they're transported to the jail to be booked in. Once we've done our side of the booking, paperwork, gathered all your personal information, people to contact for emergencies and so on, then the individual then is turned over to a corrections officer. Correction officer will dress them out to be placed in their cell. They'll collect fingerprints and a photograph that will also be attached to their arrest record. And then once that's stored in there, then of course advise when their court dates will be, any type of fines. If say it was a warrant and the warrant has a bond of say $1,000, that bond is typically set by a judge based on either court cost or fines. If it was maybe a failure to appear on a traffic violation, then they may have roughly $1,000 bond, and that would be fines that weren't paid, court costs that weren't paid. And then they have the option, if it's a cash bond, then they have to pay the entire amount. If it's standard bond, then they can contact a bondsman. Typically, your bond is going to require 10 to 15% of what the bond is set at in order to get you out of jail. So once the booking process is finished, fingerprinting, photographs, and they give you the option to make that phone call, whether it be a bondsman to get you out, or a family member to mediate on your to get a bondsperson to come get you released.
So it has to be a family member, or just
It could be anybody.
oh, okay.
Anybody willing to sign half to help you get released.
Okay, cool. So I guess kind of since we've went through all of the training and just protocol that you all have to follow and everything, if you would like to share some just like do's and don'ts for police officers and how they should, I guess, engage with citizens on their job and just general information on that.
I think the biggest thing I try to teach and train is like I stated earlier, is to train for. And same thing with the citizens, and I would like them to reach out. If you see an officer in your community or driving around or walking around, then take that opportunity to open up and speak with that officer, get to know the officers that are in your community, same as us, to reach out and get to know the citizens of our community. It's at some point, we need to be more than just a face on the street. We need to be connected with that community to build that rapport so people feel safe when they're at homes. And same as us, if we see people that we deal with on a routine basis, whether good or bad, we have that rapport with them. So I've spoken to you at the gas station or supermarket several times. I know your face. It'd be nice to put a name with that face and get to know people on a more personal level. And I think that would not only benefit our community, but it would benefit the officers here as well.
Mm. And has there been like a situation where maybe a citizen says that they feel unsafe with a police officer? Is that a thing for citizens to report police officers here?
If
Or
always, if an incident has happened that that person did not feel or safe with the interaction with the officer, and that's something that needs to be brought to our attention. Now, it could be something completely out of context. Either this officer may have just left a hot call where their adrenaline was amped up, so he hadn't quite calmed down. He just come off as harsh, or it could just be that officer's demeanor, which is something we would need to correct how he's engaging with the public.
Mhm. And is that also a thing in that you all do? And is that part of the training, just how to engage with the public in general? Or
Yes, yeah.
okay.
We send officers as training. That's a big part of the job. You get on a call and everybody's excited. Something just happened and that person's excitement comes off as aggression. So you as an officer need to know how to de-escalate that situation. It's not meant to be aggression, but they're excited. So that excitement comes off as being aggressive. So a young officer who doesn't have a lot of experience may take that as a threat. So they need to know, okay, let's talk them down. Let's get them calmed down. So now I try to investigate what actually happened here. But until you can get that calm enough, their statements aren't going to make sense because their mind is going so fast. All they know is I've been victimized, so I'm excited. Well, we had to learn and train better to de-escalate those situations. Because if you're excited and you're yelling and screaming, then I'm trying to bring you down to a level we can have a conversation. If that's not helping, you're becoming more and more aggressive. That officer tends to start getting more aggressive. And then it's a lose-lose on both sides.
Okay. So yeah, that make, and I may have asked earlier, but it probably slipped and probably like slipped. But how long are police officers trained?
All together, it's 12 weeks in the academy and 14 weeks on the street. So 26 weeks training before they're released on their own. And then we do minimum 12 hours of additional training each year. But most officers do anywhere from 20 to 80 hours of additional training every year.
Okay.
We constantly going over procedures. If something happens in another municipality or another state that we can use as a training tool, then our training officer will come in and they'll set up a class and type of training, go over that to better train our junior guys.
That's nice. So yeah, usually I have these talks and conversations with different artists that I know, since that's the field that I'm in, and just towards the end, I always just like to ask if there's anything that you would like to um, just say to leave on a positive note, whether it's or just anything to leave on a positive note for people who are listening.
I would definitely like to this majority of police officers that get into the field for the right reason. We want to make a difference. We want to make a change. I want to make somebody's life better. I love working with the youth in the community. I love being an example to them. So now, granted, in every profession, there are some people that get in for the wrong reasons, but ones that actually have a passion for this job. We have a passion for the citizens that we are working for. So again, don't be afraid to reach out and start up a conversation with an officer. I mean, if you see an officer, if they're having lunch, I know we're only there for 30 minutes, so we're running in and out, but take an opportunity just to reach out and get to know the officers that are working in your community. Let's try what we can to better build a rapport so we can all work better together safely.
Okay. Well, thank you for talking with me and having this conversation and answering uh, all of the questions that I had. I always have questions to ask, but yeah, um, I think that is really productive to have conversations with whoever's willing, whoever can. So I really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. Glad to be of help.
Thank you. Be
Yeah.
safe, and hope you have a good night.
Thank you, ma'am. You too.